On the verge of finalizing what could become its largest ever defense deal, a massive 3.25 lakh crore agreement with France for 114 advanced Rafale fighter jets for the Indian Air Force. This Made in India push would see the majority of the aircrafts manufactured domestically, starting with 12 to 18 jets delivered in ready-to-fly condition for quick induction. The rest would be built in India through a partnership involving Dassault Aviation and local firms, incorporating around 30% indigenous content initially and potentially rising to 60% over time. This includes integrating Indian weapons and systems, establishing a maintenance, repair and overall facility in India, and positioning the country as a potential global hub for Rafale production and support. The deal aims to urgently bolster the IAF, which currently operates only 36 Rafales, with 26 more Rafale M naval variants ordered last year. Negotiations are advancing rapidly, with a high-level Defence Ministry meeting held around mid-January 2026 to discuss the proposal. If approved, the contract could be signed by late 2026 or early 2027, possibly during French President Emmanuel Macron's upcoming visit to India, leading to deliveries starting around 2030. This would elevate India's total Rafale fleet to 176 aircrafts, making it the largest operator outside France and a major step towards defense self-reliance under the Make in India initiative. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Major General G.G. Dwivedi, Global and Strategic Defense Expert, Group Captain U.K. Devnath, former Indian Air Force officer, Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran, former Indian Air Force officer, also with us on the show, and last but not the least, Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President of the CDPR, is also joining us on the broadcast to talk more about the gentleman. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. General Dwivedi, this is of course a huge leap in the direction of Atmanirbharta, but it is also a major requirement that is being fulfilled, considering the fact that the environment around us is getting hostile by the day.
Well, Vineet, absolutely, because we need to understand a little background of this mega deal that could be inked, as you said, anytime soon. Well, Indian Air Force today is grappling with the depleted fighter jet strength, barely, I think, down to 29, whereas our minimal requirement is 42. That is as per the erstwhile threat perception. But today, if you see the threat scenario, the requirement could be as much as 60 squadrons. Well, we are in a critical situation now, partly because of the adhocism and also a bit of short-sighted planning, because in 2015 we had negotiated for 114 MFRA, that is the medium fighter, multi-role aircraft, but only 36 were bought in 2018. That was also an emergency. After that, currently we have very little choice, because what is available to us, either we go for the American F-35, the price is very high, it means adding new inventory, or Su-57 from Russia, again 5th generation aircraft. But I think currently what is available to us at the Rafale is the best choice, because we already have 62 of these, 36 aircraft, 26 more are coming in the marine version. And this 114 aircraft, once added, I think it will at least arithmetically will ensure that we have adequate squadron strength. But there are a couple of issues that are involved with it. First and foremost, as you rightly said, initially 30% only will be the indigenous content. The second point is that time lag that is going to take place, because after all, the deliveries are going to start only after 3-4 years. Now there are going to be a gap in that, and the couple of other issues like the source code, if it is not given, that means we will not be able to integrate our own avionics, especially radars and weapon systems. And more importantly is that how much technology is actually transferred, because as far as the news reports that are available, beyond 30% content that is indigenous, not much is going to be delivered as per the TOT. But there are certain add-ons as well. France is setting up M88, maintenance and overall facility. Then Tatas are going for the manufacturing, the airframe of Rafale aircraft. So all these are add-ons. So on nutshell, what I would say is that today, given the criticality, Rafale is the best choice because in continuation of the inventory we already have of logistical operational issues and also the experience on this aircraft because this aircraft did extremely well during Operation Sindoor. So I think this is the right decision now, and this deal should be signed sooner than later so that the kind of void that is currently available with us today is set right. And my last point is we need fifth generation fighter aircraft because China has today J-20, 300 of them, and a couple of squadrons of FJ-35, which is the export version, could be given to Pakistan. And if that happens, that will upset the strategic balance in our region. So therefore, we need to also plan to acquire the fifth generation aircraft again as an add-on to the Rafale fleet, Vinith.
All right, you're quite right about that, and this is obviously something which was also a pain point for India in the past as well, Wing Commander Sudhakaran, that we are importing these aircrafts, but it's the technology sharing that really matters for India. I can't hear you.
What is the question? Can you just come again?
Well, India's pain point, Wing Commander Sudhakaran, has always been the technology which a lot of these countries have not shared. Do you think that this is perhaps going to take care of that pain point that India has had?
See, nobody is going to give anything. Specifically, strategic technologies are not going to come free. The earlier India gets this fact right, it sets its policies right, it is better for the country. I've been stressing this time and again. If we think that you can throw some pennies and then you're going to get technology because France is a good friend of yours, nobody is a permanent friend or a foe geopolitically. Everybody is there to sustain, live of their own. President Maduro was captured right from his backyard, and the whole world is silent about it. Can't even, air our concerns openly for the fear of retribution from the Americans. That is the world order that we live in. So we need to understand very clearly that we've already put ourselves in a corner by getting the number of squadron strength from the required 42 to under 28 today. At worst times, we might be operating somewhere around 25 when you talk about the unserviceabilities, weather conditions and things like that, and the rotables that don't, meet the requirements of the inventory. Now, if you are operating at this and with the kind of friendship that the Pakistani regime is fostering with the Americans certainly don't want you to grow at the kind of GDP rate that you are growing. They want you to keep you under pressure, and so does China. So you are today trying to be a power which is going to knock on the top three. And with great power, when you acquire that level of power, comes great responsibilities, and we are not behaving like a responsible nation. This is something that we need to get straight, because we need to get our R&D funding straight, at least 3 to 4 times more. Our GERD ratio is just about 0.7% even today. The RDI fund still doesn't suffice because there is still a lot of last mile connectivity problems there. If you don't invest sufficient amount of money, you're going to have brain drain. Your critical talent is still leaving the country. You need to retain them within. You need to fund enough in the ecosystem, and you need to fund the strategic projects. The AMCA is your actual solution, and the next generation of AMCA, which is your UCAV-based solutions, those are the aircraft which are going to fulfill your gaps. Rafale, yes, you may buy 114 because technically speaking, given the shortcomings of Su-57, you don't have much choices with you. And since you are already operating 36 Rafales, it is a good deterrent of sorts, but this will still not solve your problem because this still doesn't stand up to the Chinese threat, which is far more system-centric. Your aircraft, your air power is still today platform-centric. And platform-centric warfare is an outdated phenomenon. That is why you have a problem with standoff weapon delivery, which is upwards of 250 kilometers. You will become cannon fodder in that kind of a warfare regime. And given the fact that Pakistan is likely to acquire the J-20 class of aircrafts, which are stealth aircrafts with a very, very low RCS, even the best of the air defense systems that you may have will struggle against that. Even if they don't cross the border, they will pose a significant deterrent even for a Rafale class of aircraft. That is why we need to get our acts together. There is a lot that needs to be done. Yes, Rafale could be a stopgap arrangement, but this is where we need to double up on our AMCA and on our next generation UCAV projects, which we have unfortunately not pursued with the right level of intent, with the right level of resource backing, and at the right direction and pace. And if we think that technology is going to come from the sky gifted by somebody, this is not happening. India needs to understand this, and as early as it does, it is good for us, good for the armed forces, good for the threat that we face from now 3 sides of the border. It is not even 2. Bangladesh is also surrendered, and you can never understand when Chinese will come and open up an airfield from this side and hit the chicken neck. So we have problems on all 3 sides, and we need to be prepared for these kind of eventualities, not in the long foreseeable future, but in the immediate and the short term as well.
All right. Dr. Bhattacharya, obviously there are economic impacts of something like this happening as well. From a net importer, India has obviously taken a number of strides when it comes to exporting defense equipment as well. But according to you, how is this particular nuanced approach, with countries like France and in the past with Russia, is helping our cause of growth and Atmanirbharta?
Well, as the wing commander just mentioned, it doesn't really help. But it is contextual. What are the options that India has? We just retired 2 squadrons of MiG-21, I think Squadron 23 and Squadron 3. So we are down with 2 more squadrons, which adds to the problems that the Major General mentioned a little while ago. So here is a case where we desperately need far more squadrons than the 42 that are sanctioned. We are less than 30 right now. We should be at 60 ideally, if not more. We've got adversaries which are very powerful adversaries, which includes our neighbor in the north, our neighbor in the east, and our neighbor in the west. We also have an adversary or a friendly adversary in North America, and we need to make sure that we've got enough deterrence for any misadventure from that side also. So it's a very complex, evolving situation, and each of the platforms that we talk about, such as a fighter jet or Rafale in this particular case, this is a very, very complex platform. So if we are trying to create an AMCA, it is scheduled to be inducted by 2035. And even when it gets inducted, it'll take at least a couple of more years, if not half a decade, to stabilize, because that's the nature of the beast. Rafale also took a lot of time to stabilize. Now, one of the advantages of a platform such as Rafale is that it has got high service availability, at least 80%, which is what its predecessor, the Mirage 2000, had. And it is a claim 90% of what they are saying is the service availability of Rafale. Versus if you look at a Sukhoi, which is less than 50% service availability, which means that you need to buy 2 Sukhois to really have 1 Sukhoi available. Now you look at the other options. Let's assume that we can go ahead and buy an F-35. Same problem. Its service availability is less than 50%. And therefore, you need to buy 2 very expensive aircrafts to be able to have just 1 aircraft in your hangar, which is available full time. In addition, the geopolitics of F-35 is far more complex than the geopolitics of a Rafale. And hence, in the equation from an Indian perspective of which platform to buy, among the few that are available, which fit in the requirement that India has, which is at least a 4.5 plus generation aircraft, there are very few that India can really buy. And finally, the race had come down to the fifth generation Su-57 from Russia versus the Rafale from France. And Rafale has been battle tested by India. And in Operation Sindoor, it performed brilliantly, which is why the Indian Air Force is very, very comfortable going ahead with buying more of these Rafales. Now, by the time this 114 Rafales will be bought, uh, and assuming that there is no further degradation of the number of squadrons that India has, so by 2030 or 2034, we'll reach 42 squadrons, including the 114 Rafales that come in. And that is still nowhere close to the 60 that is needed. And perhaps it'll be more by the time 2035 comes, which means that's where the AMCA program fits in. So it is not this or that. It is not that the Rafale is coming in, so the Indian fifth generation aircraft program will get compromised. That's not the case. There is a need for many more aircrafts of that capability that can be inducted. Also, in parallel, what's happening, and the wing commander kind of hinted at that, is that the kind of platform required will also be changing quite rapidly. So by 2035, perhaps we don't even need a manned platform, although the experts in the Air Force do put their foot down on that and say we do need manned aircrafts, but probably we need a very different mix of aircrafts. We need a lot more unmanned and a lesser number of manned aircrafts, which will then have what's typically called the wingman kind of aircrafts with one single aircraft managing them. And are we building them up? Does Rafale have the capability to support these future developments? And then the whole issue of how much of upgrades we can do. Now, France has not been clear whether we can upgrade the Rafale to the fifth generation. They have allowed us to upgrade it from the third to the fourth, but not to the fifth. There is no clarity on it. And so do we send the planes packing back to France for the upgrades as and when it is needed? Those are clarity that we need. The good part is that when we are setting up an MRO to service such a large number of aircraft, then clearly Dassault, which is the provider of Rafale, will use the Indian infrastructure and facilities to service other Rafale aircrafts. And therefore, the center of gravity for fighter aircrafts would move towards India. And that's a really plus point in that sense. And that gives a lot of opportunity to MSMEs, defense players, defense MRO players to get a pie, a share of that pie as and when it gets created.
Okay.
So there are many advantages, there are some challenges, but we don't really have much of an option.
All right, it's a mixed bag, as has been enunciated by most of our panelists. So, Group Captain Devnath, how do you look at this? Is this a game changer, or do you think that, of course, this is a necessity, considering the fact that the heat that we are facing from our neighbors is only going up?
Vineet, let me open the debate by saying that in next 10 years, that is by 2035, we are going to close down 5 Jaguar squadrons, 4 MiG-29 squadrons, and 3 Mirage 2000. So 12 squadrons fighter aircraft will go out of our inventory in next 10 years. Now, where are the replacement? We are looking forward very keenly at Tejas Mark 1A. 87 in first batch should come, then 97 more have been contracted for. So Tejas Mark 1A, we will have 180 of them, about 10 squadrons in next 10 to 15 years. Where are the other aircraft on the horizon? Other aircraft, if we are talking about Rafale, 114 Rafale, if they come, I have a big if, then is just about 6 squadron worth. Vineet, any contract of this nature, because we are talking about MRO, we are talking about M88 being assembled or manufactured in India. Such contracts typically take anything like 1, 2 or 3 years to sign the contract. I am sure that by the time at the earliest we sign this contract, it will be 2027, 2028. First aircraft will start arriving when? first 18 may start arriving in India by 2030. So it is very, very precarious situation for Indian Air Force. As already bought out, we are down to 28, 29 squadron. Okay, let me share one practical thing. None of the fighter squadrons in Indian Air Force right now have 18 fighter squadrons which are authorized. So when we say we have 28 squadrons, actually they don't have 18 fighter squadrons. They have just about 17, 16, 15, 14 aircraft. And out of that, if we take a rough serviceability of 60%, that means any one of our fighter squadron can generate, in case there is a war, any one of our engineering officer can produce to his commanding officer for war tonight just about 8, 10 or 12 aircraft. So we are in a very, very precarious situation. We must, get over this hangover right now of indigenization. There is no time for that. There is absolutely no time. We must buy first and indigenize later on. As such, production line in Rafale are very busy because our initial batch of 36 were F3 level and we have to soon upgrade them to F4 level. These 114 will come to India, initial batch 18 at F4 level. A contract which we are trying to sign is to upgrade them in future up to F5 level. So things are very, very complicated. We must get over this hangover about making things in India. These 114 must come to India even if they have more maximum content from France. Being a fighter pilot, 34 years in Air Force, I will assure you, Vineet, it is impossible to make all the rotables, all the tools, testers, calibration equipment, laboratories in India. We must have an open mind and quickly go and fetch it from off the shelf from France. Sign the contract like that.
All
If
right.
we sign a
Fair
contract
enough, sir.
in
We've
which
run out of
most of
time,
the-
but I appreciate the commentary as well as the inputs that have been shared on this broadcast. We have completely run out of time. We'll take a short break on that note. We'll be right back.